G'day, welcome. How are you guys going? Hope all is well. Look, welcome again to another podcast here, Ram It Up, where we'll be talking all things International Rugby League. Look, before we sort of start, Fanatics, how are you going there, my friend? How have you been?
I'm doing I'm doing good. Hope you're doing well yourself, and it's good to be back on here again and doing this show with yourself. And look, it's been a really very good week of international rugby league. Especially enjoyed the Pacific Championship final, which we'll go through. And we have now got the all the teams. I think majority of the teams qualified for the Rugby League World Cup there. We'll definitely discuss that, and we'll talk about the finals, the Pacific Championship, and the Ashes, which has gone by as well. It's good to be back on here again, and looking forward to having a chat all things international rugby league with you again tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, glad you are going well. So again, viewers, hope you guys are well. Before we sort of kick things off again, I urge you guys to please look at my videos talking about all things Adelaide Rams Rugby League related. I've got a various amount of topics as well that cover different things about Adelaide, and there is more to come. And just a little preview for you guys as well. I'll also be going to different places in Adelaide as well, taking snapshots and talking about the different towns in relation to the Rams and stadiums and all that stuff as well. So we'll get up close and personal, but at the same time as well, again, giving guys a glimpse of what life will be like when the Rams come back to the NRL. But in saying that, we are going to get straight into things, guys. So first things first, Rugby League qualifiers. So Cook Islands versus South Africa. So not many of you guys may have even known about the game, and that is absolutely A-OK. But long story short there, guys, the Cook Islands actually beat South Africa. Now, the interesting thing about South Africa, I think I've told Fanatics this as well, but I'll just re-jog his memory and I'll let you guys know. But in South Africa, rugby league is actually not recognized as an official sport. So what I understand is for the South African rugby league team in South Africa, rugby league is actually brought underneath rugby union. So they don't recognize rugby league as its own sport. They don't fund it. They don't care for it. Unfortunately, they treat it like rubbish in South Africa. And so what you get is players who went over to Australia from South Africa, they actually used their own money. It wasn't funded by the government. It wasn't funded by anything at all to do with South Africa. The men who actually flew over to Sydney to play the Cook Islands and from South Africa used their own money. There's no funding. There's no government, nothing. No recognition. Zero. So again, it's just a testament. And yes, I know Cook Islands won 58 points to 6. It was a drumming. But in saying that, it was actually just good to see South Africa turn up. So again, many of us don't know, many of you don't know, South Africa have been part of rugby league since the 50s, actually, since the 50s. But again, their history is a bit here and there because of how rugby union, and again, I'm not here to talk about sporting politics, but how rugby union have treated rugby league over there in South Africa. But in saying that, like I said, nonetheless, congrats on South Africa for joining in, and hopefully we see him next time round. But nonetheless, Cook Islands, by winning that qualifier there, have become the last and official team to be part of the Rugby League World Cup for 2026. So congrats again to the Cook Islands, or also known as the Cook Island Aitu as well. So congrats to them. Now, guys, we also know that, a lot of exciting things were happening on this side of the hemisphere here. There's a lot of Pacific Rugby League happening, Papua New Guinea, the Kiwis, Fiji, so on and so forth. But there was actually a bit of rugby league happening up in the Northern Hemisphere. No, I'm not talking about the rugby league qualifying match between France and Jamaica. I'm talking about the England hosting Australia. 3 games series in which the Aussies swept them. We swept them. I say we because, I'm Australian as well. But anyway, nonetheless, Australia swept them. Fanatics, can you please give me your thoughts on that series as a whole? And, there were some comments as well happening afterwards in which an English bloke said that if they had their best squad there, they'll beat them. Too little, too late to talk tough there, Fanatics. But again, please, all yours. What were your thoughts on the series as a whole? Give us your thoughts.
Look, to be honest, this probably went as expected. I went into the series thinking, I was hoping, England could give it a red hot crack. The first two games, I felt like England were quite disappointing, to be honest. I don't think Australia played great, but they did the job. And Reece Walsh, obviously a great tour, a great Ashes series for Reece Walsh. And I think he's in the running for the Golden Boot Award. The International Rugby League has released the Golden Boot Awards nominees, and he is up there in that list. So I think if Reece Walsh won it, I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't be against it. But in saying that, also Dylan Brown had a very good Pacific Championship as well. So, another name being thrown in that list as well. But in terms of the Australian side, I think they brought over a few players, especially, and a lot of them did not get a game, I was really surprised that they didn't, bring in someone like a Mitch Moses for this third game of the series. Kevin was reluctant to name those players. I know some people may argue against. People might not like it. Some people may think it's, the Australia won the first two games. Why would you change the squad? And they want to go after a 3-0 series sweep. So, you could have understand that point of view. But in terms of performance from Australia, I think they were. I don't think they were great, to be honest. England sort of just, look, I think England were quite disappointing, to be fair. I mean, attacking wise, they really didn't threaten Australia throughout these games. I think they only scored like one or two tries throughout the series, which is very disappointing. As for Australia, you know what, you can come to expect they were going to win the series pretty well, and they did 3-0. So kudos to Australia, but yeah, I don't know. Something about England, I kind of expected a little bit more from them. To be honest, I feel like they didn't really threaten Australia throughout these games. Defensively, there were some games where they were, hang tough for the first couple of minutes, till half time or at least, and then, the second half they were just, ran well. Australia just ran right in the second half. They didn't really have to do a lot, to be honest. So, congratulations to Australia. Clean sweep in the Ashes, 3-0 series sweep over England. Good result for them. World champions, as you'd expect. England, I mean, look, I know some people might call me a hater of English rugby if I say this, but I think they're miles behind at the moment. I think they're miles behind. Maybe look at their coaching, their grassroots. Yes, they're up against it. To be honest, they're up against it because you look at what they have to compete against, like rugby union, football. It's massive in England, so you've got to look at that from that perspective as well. But I don't think Sean Wayne, the coach, really picked a really good enough squad, to be honest. I think there were a couple of players that he left out, including Jake Connor. He won the Super League Man of Steel, which is, the equivalent of the Dally M's in the NRL. And he left him out of the squad, which was really surprising. There's quite a few bizarre selections from this England squad from Sean Wayne. And Sean Wayne, came out and said, I think he said in the press conference, I am confident I'll be able to lead this English side at the World Cup next year. He's talking about how, he's got a lot of faith and doing the English side, at the World Cup in 2026. So, yeah, I think as an Australian fan point of view, you're probably happy with the series sweep. They won. They were rather convincing scorelines. Performances, not great. Not the greatest performances, but the scorelines suggest they were quite convincing in the end. So, yeah, what did you think of the Ashes series? Ram it up. I didn't feel like the series lived up to the hype as a whole, but what did you think of it?
Yeah, look, I'd probably argue. Actually, no, I agree with you. Saying that the series didn't live up to the hype, and I think that's namely because it's sort of hard to to hype it up when there's only one person dancing, right? It takes two to tango, and unfortunately, Australia were left dancing alone on their own in the ballroom there. So, yeah, much to my, I guess, displeasure. I agree with you. Yeah, it wasn't hyped. In saying that, though, I am glad they won. My takeaways from the game overall, look, the gap between Australia and England is actually not as close as people make it out to be.
No.
And for the exact reasons you exemplified there, Fanatics, you touched on it. Participation, popularity of the sport. Again, English Rugby League, whether we like to admit it or not, it's not as big as they say it is in England. It's big, don't get me wrong, but it's not like big, like it is compared to football, compared to cricket, compared to rugby union, right? I would even argue and say that maybe even basketball probably has a little bit of a tinkering there. But nonetheless, those reasons you touched on, Fanatics, are true. And yeah, like you said, there was perhaps a few selection mishaps. Jordan, oh goodness, Nasembe, I believe it is. Junior, or is it Jordan? Jaden? No, Junior. I'm pretty sure it's Junior Nasembe. Is the second rower for Leeds. I know it's not Leeds. St. Helens.
I think it's Wigan.
Wigan Warriors. Apologies.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Wigan. Yeah.
Thank you. It's the Wigan Warriors. Yeah, that's right. A few selection mishaps. Maybe should have been selected. Maybe not. Not sure. But look, I think without being too disrespectful to our English counterparts, their Fanatics, I don't think it would have really mattered who they selected. I don't think it would have mattered. I think Australia would have won the series. Maybe they lose one game. Maybe they lose the second game. But Australia would have won the series 2-1 anyway, or 3-0 as it happened. So, yeah. I will say this, though. The question that I heard being asked after the series, though, before we go into the Pacific Championship finals, Nathan Cleary just still wasn't really... I mean, yes, he was our number 7, but he wasn't really controlling the room, so to speak. He wasn't controlling the team. And so there's a lot of questions going around there saying, does he sort of fall flat when it comes to rep footy? Unfortunately, the numbers don't lie. Nathan Cleary, more often than not, when it comes to rep footy, Fanatics, as a proud Queensland supporter, he goes missing. He goes missing. And I think he sort of did in this series. Again, not trying to be offensive here. I'm a big Nathan Cleary fan. We both are, actually. But I don't think he was sort of there. I may be wrong. But I thought Munster was great. I thought he was good.
Yep.
I thought Walsh was good. Right? I thought Isaiah was all right. I thought Carrigan was good. Fa'asua Maliawi, Stags. I thought a few plays there were all right, but I expected just a little bit more from Nathan Cleary, and I don't think it quite delivered, Fanatics. I don't know. Am I sort of going a bit too far there? Is it sort of like, what are your thoughts? Are the people wrong for questioning that? Am I wrong for that analysis? What are your thoughts there?
Watching the 3 games, I don't think he dominated. I know there's always a lot of expectation there. With a player like him, obviously there's a lot of talk around his rep side of things. We know he's the greatest, great player in the NRL. Form of the game. But rep football's still not quite, dominating that arena just yet. So I wouldn't say he was. I wouldn't go, to say that he was, terrible in these 3 games. I think he did his job, but he didn't dominate as you would hope for. And I'm a big Cleary fan, actually, even though he is New South Welshman. I do like Cleary. It's probably, still one arena of the game that maybe, he probably needs to step up a little bit more. I'm not saying he has to be brilliant every rep sort of game, but maybe show a little bit more in that sort of department, because, I know New South Wales fans are, are hoping that, if he does get picked next year, which, I know some mates might be saying, oh, no, don't pick him. But, if he does get in that arena again, you're hoping that one day he actually has a game where, he actually dominates. But Yeah, I don't know. Throughout this Ashes series, like I thought, he didn't really have to stand out a lot, but obviously, he would probably, from a lot of fans' point of view, people would love to see him dominate a bit more. But like players that stood out for me throughout this Ashes series, I'll go through them. Like Walsh. Walsh had a brilliant Ashes series. Harry Grant was awesome. I tell you what, Harry Grant just, his form. I know he was quite disappointed in the grand final. He didn't play very well in that grand final, to be honest. But other than that, he played well for the Maroons in the series, Origin series. So yeah, I think Harry Grant's another one that stood out. Reece Walsh. Yeah, those are probably my standouts for at the Ashes series. Munster, yeah, also mentioned Munster, and he got the man of the match, I believe, in the food game as well. So you know, as you would come to expect with Munster, and I know he was quiet in the grand final too. Another Melbourne player that didn't have his best performance in the grand final day, but yeah, I think to wrap up this Ashes series, I don't think there's more I can add on, but Australia, 3-0, but England, where to now for England? They've got to have a look at what they can do to step up and improve going into next year, because the World Cup's in Australia, it's not in England. So what do England do next? Where do they go from here? Because that is the big question. If getting 3-0 sweep at home is really disappointing, even though they weren't favourites going into the series. So there's a lot to work on from an English point of view. And you know what? I do hope England do be a bit more competitive. I love to see them be a bit more competitive, because I think it's good for the game that if they're up there. We know what New Zealand, Samoa, and Australia are doing. So yeah, I'll be quite interested to see where it goes from here. From an English point of view, for an England point of view, where they go.
Absolutely,
And what
yeah.
they do
I
next,
agree.
what they can do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, man. I think you definitely, yeah. I think that's probably the best way to sort of sum it up. Actually, where do England go from there? And as for Australia, it's sort of like a good building block to build on as we prepare for the Rugby League World Cup. You guys will probably notice that I say sort of we when it comes to like probably 4 different countries, but that's just the way I roll. I support 4 different countries when it comes to all sports. Fanatics knows them, and I'm proud to back all those 4
Yep.
nations. But anyway, back to it. The real kahuna there, so to speak, was the Pacific Championship
Yes.
Finals. New Zealand Kiwis, Toa Samoa, over in Sydney, Combank Stadium, I believe it was.
Yep.
Virtually sold out. Atmosphere
Oof.
galore, passion, culture, drama, hype. It was all there.
Oh.
Look, I think I'll let you go first, Fanatics, before I share my point of view. But from your perspective, what are your thoughts on the game? And
Yep.
yeah, just lay it on the fans. How did it go for you? And then I'll follow suit.
All right. So yeah, look, man, you got to admire the atmosphere, and it would have been great to be there at Combank Stadium. I would love to have been there to witness that atmosphere. Of course, I witnessed the atmosphere of Samoa Tonga, which was even amazing. None to think of that. That was my first live international rugby league match at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. But yeah, look, this game, obviously you had the pre-game huckers and the national anthems, very passionate from both teams. Really well up for it, of course. Being a final, of course, you're going to be up for it. Samoa's first ever final in the Pacific Championship. Yes, they made the World Cup final, but this was their second final overall, but their first Pacific Championship final. But yeah, look, obviously there's so much build up, so much hype, excitement. I saw videos pre-match, from Samoan fans, all the build up to it. But getting into this game now, boy, oh boy, Samoa. I felt like Samoa started this game very well. Physically, you can see they really were up for the challenge, taking on the Kiwis. Now, the Kiwis actually took a while, I think, for me to get going in terms of their attack, because I think one thing that was noticeable from this game and watching it back, I've watched it live, but I also watched it back on replay. One thing I noticed was the Kiwis' change of game plan. Ram it up. What did you think about it? Because there was a change of tone from what they've done in the previous games. The offloads, the Kiwis were trying to offload quite a fair bit during this game. They really were trying something different in terms of their attack, which I've never seen. We didn't see from the Kiwis in those first two games. So I just want to point out a question to you. What did you think about that? Those early exchanges against the Samoan side.
You know what? Now I reckon. Look, I may be way off here, but I almost thought like the Kiwis, in the third game, it was almost something you sort of sometimes see the Warriors do actually. A lot of that ad lib footy passing, you know what I mean? That's sort of that reminded me of sort of like how the Warriors sort of played. Look, I think the adjustment probably what wasn't needed. I mean, it definitely paid dividends in the second half, but obviously I think it took a bit of adjusting, as you sort of mentioned, in the first half in particular. But yeah, my overall thoughts, look, I didn't mind it in the end. That worked out for the Kiwis, but that's probably my sort of concise answer there regarding your question.
Yeah, and so Samoa, they look, in regards to the Kiwis, I don't think they gave the Kiwis too much room in terms of their defensive line. Actually was very strong. They held very strongly throughout the first half, and took a while for the Kiwis to get a try on the board actually. And Samoa, they scored first, and you can see what it meant to the fans in the stands. Majority of it was Samoan supporters. And they scored first to Brian To'o. It was a Penrith connection, an ex-Penrith connection with Luai and Brian To'o. And of course, former teammates themselves, linking up there for that first try. It was a great try for Samoa, a really well-worked try for them there. Defensively, I felt like yes, maybe probably could have been a lot better there for the Kiwis. You see that Kieran Foran was actually marking up on Brian To'o, which is not ideal at all. You don't want Kieran Foran being the one to have to make the tackle. And I think there was Matthew Timoko, I think that actually got caught out there defensively. But yeah, so the Kiwis, unfortunately, conceding that first try in this game. And then, look, I think from a forwards point of view for Samoa, I think they had a very strong performance from Junior Paulo early on this game. What did you make of Junior Paulo's? It was like he was going back to Junior Paulo of old from a couple of years ago. What did you think of his involvement early in this game? I found he was particularly strong. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it was definitely it definitely reminded me of Junior Bolo of 2021. Definitely winding the clock back then as well. He actually played Origin 2 as well during that time. Yeah, I thought he was superb. I honestly think he sort of set the tone for the whole Toa Samoa forward pack. To be fair with you, because they were all guns a-blazing in that first half. All of them, they were already physical, as you mentioned. They were dominating, and they definitely dominated the Kiwis in the forward battle for sure in the first half in particular. But definitely look, Bolo, he led the pack for sure.
Yeah, so Samoa then they got an intercept try to Semi Sasagi. So Semi Sasagi, the Canberra Raider. And it's suddenly 10-0 to the Toa Samoa, and then it goes to 12-0 with 11 minutes left in the first half. And I'm thinking the Kiwis have really got to get a move on here and get a try before half time. And I know there's a long way to go, but still, you'd hope that they can actually get some points before the break. The big interchange was Nafahu White coming onto the field. Now I think the momentum started to swing a little bit when he came on, actually, and I think his impact you can see was really felt. What did you make of Nafahu White? I thought he was absolutely brilliant when he came onto the field. The impact he made as well, definitely threatening the Samoans' defensive line. What did you make out of his impact there?
No, Fahu White for me, he was look, as soon as he come on, he had that run. You saw that run he had. I think it was the first or second minute of the second half. I'm not trying to compare him, but that looks so reminiscent of John Alomu, honestly. Running guys over, storming over him. That big bumpy head on Tuivasa Shek. He fends one guy, runs over another. No, Fahu White, mate, he was sensational. It was actually good to see him bump off a few Samoans being a Tongan just quietly. But look, look, all jokes aside, for the Kiwis, I thought he was great. I think early on in the second half, and I'm sure you can agree, he was a difference maker in the second. And he has been the difference maker for the Kiwis, this whole squad. Let's just be quite frank. He's grown in leaps and bounds. I'm just going to quickly. We talk about McLean and what he produces, and we enjoy McLean, right? Goodness me, he's going to be the next big thing in the Kiwis jersey. But Nafahu White is slowly making his own little role in this team, and coming off the bench, him and Clark, the Hammer Brothers or the Smash Bros, something. Man, anyway, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so the Kiwis actually started to, finally get some points on the board, and it was 12 points to 6. And with, you mentioned Aaron Clark, but Aaron Clark, he actually was having a great first half too. So lots made about Nafahu White, but Aaron Clark was playing brilliantly, and yeah, he created that space, one on one with Jerome Luai. And the Kiwis go in to score the first try of this game. And then going into halftime, I believe we were I think it was 14 points to 6. Just going back on, there was a moment before the break where the Samoans got a penalty. And I think there was a moment before I was there a moment before that I don't know if you recall, but there was a controversial moment. Well, according to a lot of Samoans, they don't think they thought it was a try. What are your thoughts on two of those moments there? There was one moment in particular. Of course, you had the penalty to Samoa with I think it was Luai that went. I personally felt he ducked, and then they won a penalty off that. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, look. I'll try to be diplomatic here. Luai, in my opinion, did duck, but the rules are if you do make contact with the head, if you do make contact with the head, it is a head high. So it is what it is in that regard. As for the second, as for the no try that you're referring to, look, okay, honestly, I think it was a no try. However, I've also seen that be given a try. We have seen that being given a try too. I've seen it in the NRL. We have. To be fair, it is. I'm going to be fair. Despite me thinking it was a no try to Dean Mariner, I will say I have seen that being given a try. So the Toa fans have every right to blow up because honestly, that's a try almost every day of the week in the NRL. It wasn't a try on that occasion. You sort of just played to the whistle there, I think. But nonetheless, I don't think it was a penalty. It shouldn't have been. Luai ducked, in my opinion. And my opinion was it was a no try. But caveat being, I have seen that being called a try. So those are my thoughts there, Fanatics.
Yeah. So at halftime was 14 to 6 there, and then of course second half got underway. The Kiwis. I think the Kiwis came out a lot more. Let's say they're a lot more dominant. The Kiwis went over to score a try to Isaiah Papali'i. The Kiwis 6, 7, and 9 combining there. The spine, and it was 14 to 12. The Kiwis. So the Kiwis only 14 to 12. They're not far from getting in front there, and then they decided to take a penalty goal, which I think was the correct call. I had no issues with them locking up the scorelines at 14-all because there's plenty of time left. I just felt like the Kiwis dominated. They dominated. And Samoa, I felt like they were getting a bit fatigued, tired, and the Kiwis were coming over the top of them because Samoa themselves didn't help. With giving away a few penalties, which made them having to tackle a lot. And Aaron Clark scored a great try. And look, best lock in the game, best lock in the world. I know some people call me crazy for saying that, but he did win the NRL Dalium Lock of the Year. So the Kiwis got to an 18-12 lead. What were you thinking once the Kiwis got to 18-12? Because I thought with 13 minutes to go, Samoa man really need to start to, get some more ball, put some more pressure on this Kiwis lineup because the Kiwis were starting to feel a lot confident now. They were starting to find their rhythm, find their groove. What did you think of it, Ramana? What did you think of the once the Kiwis got that 18-12 lead?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't say I don't think you were still confident backing Kiwis. I think you still, like you said, you still thought that Toa Samoa had a bit more ammo in them. Especially with the way they were playing, despite the Kiwis obviously getting the hot start in the second half early on through Papali'i Clark as well. I still think Toa Samoa were attacking well, still defensively as well. I think we haven't touched on it, but their defense, particularly in that first half, that's rep footy. That's what that was. That's playing for your country. That's what that was. That's honor. That's passion. That's heart. That's love for your nation. That's exactly what that was. And I thought the way that they defended in the first half, in particular, exemplified what it means for those players who play for Toa Samoa. And I thought they did a great job there. But I think you sort of I think what you said, Fanatics. You sort of gave the answer as to why I think Toa Samoa lost, honestly. And it's fatigue. The second half was the fatigue. I think they gave everything they had in the first half, but the Kiwis had a second wind, so to speak, and obviously they were able to show it. So that's why, as you know, despite the Kiwis having a little bit of a head start in the second, they were able to go on with it full throttle in the end because I think Toa Samoa just ran out of gas in the end there, and a bit of ill discipline came into play as well for Toa Samoa. And the Kiwis took advantage of that courtesy of Kieran Foran as well, who we all know had his last official game of professional rugby league. But yeah, look, I'll let you finish off before I have my yarn fanatics. But go for it again, man.
All right, so we'll just get through it. So, like I say, there, the Kiwis, got off to that 18-12 lead. 30 minutes to go. Look, I'm not saying the game is completely over because I know Samoa more than capable of making a fist of it. Like they did against the Kiwis in that first game of the Pacific Championship, where they managed to come back and come real close to beating the Kiwis. So there was still time for them to come back. But I do felt that the momentum was all on the New Zealand Kiwis side. Then Casey McLean goes over, it makes it 24-12, 24-14, sorry, 24-14 there. And great footwork there, and great pass. James Fisher Harris was also massive in this game as well. I felt he played a bit of a big part throughout this whole game. And he made the play there. Regards to he can see he could beat a few defenders. And then of Casey McLean finishing that off with a try. Again, another try to Casey McLean. How good has Casey McLean been? Man, he has been just awesome. A very young kid as well, and this is only his second year playing for the New Zealand Kiwis, being a debuted for them last year in the Pacific Championships against Papua New Guinea. So man, he has really come a long way. Obviously had a good season last year for Penrith and followed it up this season as well. And got his well-earned selection for the New Zealand Kiwis, and he's going to be in the Kiwis for the next couple of years if he can keep this going. I don't want to put any pressure on him being that young, but I say it like he's definitely the future, the New Zealand Kiwis, and he's actually born at Penrith as well. So he's not born in New Zealand, but obviously he's got Kiwi parents, and when they asked him if he wanted to be selected for, if they asked him if he wanted to be selected for New Zealand, he said it was an easy answer. He wanted to he wanted to play for New Zealand, so. Just shows that he wants to be in that jersey, which you love. You want players that want to play for the Kiwi jersey. And I'm sure Ram It Up will echo the same words. He's really pleased that Casey McLean's decided he wanted to play for the Kiwis as well. So could have easily played for New South Wales. Could have easily represented New South Wales, but he decided to choose New Zealand. So that's fair play to him. Not many players would. In this scenario, a lot of them would choose New South Wales over Kiwis, so which says a lot about him there. But Casey McLean had a another good game for the Kiwis as well. So 24-14 there, 10 minutes ago, and I felt 10 minutes ago Samoa definitely had to score next. They had an opportunity to, but they didn't take it. And then Chance Nicola-Klokstad scores. Chance Nicola-Klokstad went over to score a try as well in this game. The full-time score is 34-14, and the Kiwis win their second ever Pacific Championship title, and their first Pacific Championship title since they last beat the Australians a couple of years ago. Look, I feel like it was a statement win going into the Rugby League World Cup next year. A lot of talk during the Pacific Championship has been on the likes of Samoa and Tonga, and all due respect, definitely deserved. But the Kiwis came out there throughout this Pacific Championship, ranked underdogs. Not many people were picking to win the Pacific Championship, and here they are winning their second Pacific Championship title. Stacey Jones gets a win as well as a head coach of the Kiwis. First Pacific title for him as a coach. And Kieran Foran, like you say there, goes out as a fitting winner. What a career to Kieran Foran. I want to give my hats off to him and full respect to Kieran Foran. He has had a great international rugby league career. And, I wish him all the best in retirement. And, he is, I believe he's a Kiwi rugby league legend. Some people may say otherwise, but I believe he is. And what a fitting way for him to bow out in this game. And I want to point out my man of the match, Dylan Brown, definitely. And he got man of the match in the game, and well deserved as well. And a big shout out to Dylan Brown, because I think he could be. I think he should win the Golden Boot Award for the International Player of the Year. So, yeah, that's how I sum it up. So, over to you, Wrap It Up. Summer, how you felt about the game?
Yeah, look, I'm probably going to echo what you've said, but I just want to sort of ball it up a bit. I really think it was a game of two halves in particular. It was really physical. I want to sort of start things off here by obviously we saw the haka, right, performed by the Kiwis, and then you saw the Sivi Tau performed by Toa Samoa, led by Paulo. It sort of set the tone, I think, for what was going to be a very exciting, firing game. Now, obviously, Toa Samoa got off to a hot start, really, and I touched on their defense. It was so good in the first season in particular, because there were so many moments the Kiwis had, particularly through Foran, being able to guide the team around, but they just couldn't crack that defense. Whether it was just the last pass that went astray, or maybe holding the ball too long in some instances, it just didn't go their way. And kudos to Toa Samoa, again, who were able to score through Sasaki taking over the intercept from Kieran Foran, right? The second try there for Toa Samoa. And obviously Brian To'o as well, scoring the first try in the 10 minutes of the game. And I sort of touched on Naufahu White as well. And I sort of got the timing wrong there, so that's my apologies. But yeah, Naufahu White, when he came on the last 15 minutes of the first half, he definitely set the tone, him and Clark. Another person we forgot to mention, wasn't spoken about, but I thought Tarpin had himself another good, quiet, solid game, along with James Fisher-Harris. Nothing spectacular, but they laid the platform. They both laid the platform, and that's sometimes all you want in a game of league. sometimes you don't get the big pretty plays from your big forward. Sometimes it's not the dash and the hurdles. Sometimes it's just taking a hit up. Sometimes just playing the ball a bit quicker, making your tackles. And I think that's what Tapine and Fisher Harris did. Again, reflecting their leadership and what it means to play for this black jersey as well, which you love to see. I talk about the passion from Toa Samoa, but just equally as well, these passion from the boys ripping the black jersey as well. And look, in the second half, again, flipped over. I think Toa Samoa, I said it before and I'll say it again, I think Toa Samoa really gave their all in that first half, but I think that all discipline came into play, particularly really heavily in the second. And I don't mean it came in through spurts in the second half. I mean it came and then it sort of, minutes later it followed. Then the next set it followed. Then the next set, it was just a whole, it was a snowball effect for Toa Samoa, and I don't think they could recover. After, I think, maybe even Casey McLean, once Casey McLean scored that fourth try for the Kiwis, I think that's probably when you're thinking, all right, I think, and that was in the 66th minute. That's when I thought to myself, yeah, I think this game is probably looking well and truly done, in my opinion. And obviously, Papali and Chance to go Klukstad, who I think, and this might be I don't know, someone else's, any other Warriors podcaster there can talk about. I think he looks good in center. I think he looks good at center. I will also say, conversely, for the Toa Samoa team, before we sort of talk about the Rugby League World Cup, I thought the players had a good game for Toa Samoa. I thought Paulo had a good game. I thought Roger Tsubasa-Shek had a good game. I thought Brian Toa had a good game. I thought who else didn't? I thought Blaise Talangi in patches was good. Shna Harris Tavita wasn't too bad. Payne Haas, probably one of his more quieter games, courtesy of the Kiwis defense. You didn't see a frolicking, bustling Payne Haas sort of running over players. I thought he was well contained by the Kiwis. But yeah, overall, just to sum it up, I thought it was just a game of two halves. But again, courtesy to the Kiwis who won. Up the Kiwis, honestly, up the Kiwis, bro. It is what it is. For those who know or don't know me, I'm proud, staunch, Tongan fan, but I love the black jersey. I won't lie. I do love the black jersey. But look, in saying that, yeah, I just thought it was a good game nonetheless. And obviously, Kiwis winning, as you stated, their Fanatics, their second Pacific Pac title. And before we go into the World Cup, I will say and echo your sentiments as well. A tip of the cap to Kieran Foran, one of the greatest, in my opinion, greatest Kiwi players to don the jersey. 33 games, and every single game he put on that black jersey, Kieran Foran gave his all for the Kiwis. A great servant for the Sea Eagles as well. I will mention that. And we can't forget he did have a little bit of a razzle-dazzle with the New Zealand Warriors as well. So we can't forget Foran there, playing for the Wars as well. But look, nonetheless, thank you, Foran, for being a great servant to our rugby league, Kiwis Rugby League, and inspiring, I'm sure, a new crop of new players there coming through the ranks there, wherever that may be in Australia or New Zealand. But again, kudos and thank you. So yeah, congrats to the Kiwis. They win it. They get it done. Samoa come second, and Tonga, next time. Anyway, the Rugby League World Cup is official. The teams are now locked and loaded, guys. I will sort of touch on this before Fanatics and I converse on our thoughts on it. But there's officially only 10 teams for this upcoming Rugby League World Cup. And the game and the countries that are hosting it will be Australia, as well as Papua New Guinea. Okay, that is all. New Zealand attempted to go for a bid, but was rejected swiftly. Don't know why, but that's just the way it goes. Unfortunately, that's, the Warriors do their bit for COVID. New Zealand does their bit for COVID, and they still can't host the World Cup. But hey, State of Origin is going there in 2027. That's an interesting debate. That's an interesting debate. That's an interesting one. Anyway, we won't open up that can of worms because it looks like Fanatics has a long list of complaints there. But look, in saying that, nonetheless, the teams are for the upcoming World Cup. It's only 10 teams. So you have Australia, you've got New Zealand, you've got England, you've got Samoa, you've got Tonga, you've got Fiji, you've got Cook Islands, you've got Papua New Guinea, you've got France, and you've got My goodness, I missed that one more team. Lebanon.
Lebanon.
That's right. Lebanon. Doggies. All right. So yeah, you got those 10 teams there. And that's it. There's no more, no less. The rugby league organizers actually cut down the teams from 20 to 10. They literally halved it, stating that they prefer stating that they prefer quality over quantity. I strongly disagree with that. Anyway, before we go further, Fanatics, what are your thoughts on the 10 teams? What are your thoughts on the hosting? And any questions you have for me, please ask them. But yeah, give me your thoughts. 10 teams. Apparently, it's a World Cup, but only 10 teams are playing. I understand if it's cricket, but not when it's rugby league. Come on.
Yeah. Look, we discussed this personally. Behind the cameras. Yeah, I'm a bit shocked that it's only 10 teams. I kind of am a bit disappointed, to be honest. I won't lie on this. Like from my point of view, I feel like the more teams, the better. For the World Cup, and I know people will look at the last World Cup, and some people may suggest there's too many because you see a lot of blowout scorelines. And look, I mean there were a few blowout scorelines, but not every game was a blowout. You can see that. I know those teams, particularly had Jamaica, Greece. I think ramming
Italy,
up could Italy. That's right, Italy.
Wales,
Quite a few of
Ireland,
those.
Scotland.
Wales, Ireland, Scotland. Yes, all those teams. It is quite a shame that either of those teams can't qualify. Because those teams are missing out. Like for example, you had South Africa playing the Cook Islands on the weekend, and unfortunately for South Africa, having to play the Cook Islands, and I don't know how many lead-up games they had going into that one. I don't think they had hardly any, to be honest. I don't know from what I've heard. I think they played Niue, and they lost to
They did,
Niue.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, look, I'm not a fan of the only 10 teams. I think 10 teams is not enough. Yes, I know some people don't think the quality is not the greatest, and some people might look at the scores. And I know International Rugby League has gone out of limb and said something like that. I think they did. But yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with it only being 10 teams. I would have loved to have seen, a couple more teams added in there, and it's unfortunate for those teams to miss out. But the big thing for me is what the format's going to look like. Now, ram it up. I don't know. There's some insights into that you can go through. What's the format looking like? Like, we don't have the draws yet and the pools yet been announced,
Yes.
but we know it's in Australia and Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
So, what's the go
Yeah.
there?
So yeah, look, and again, I apologize because I gave you guys a bit of misinformation there. So that's apologies on my part. The last World Cup was 16 teams. It was 16 teams, not 20. So I take that back. Apologies there. But nonetheless, what the International Rugby League Federation have done is obviously cut 6 teams. I will say this quickly before I veer off into the pools. The reason why I definitely agree on having more teams, namely, is because obviously there's culture, there's experience, there's a richness, but also these teams get a chance to showcase their game. We talk about the likes of, obviously being Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and so on, showcasing their games on a much smaller scale still. You get those other teams like Italy, Greece. These are big Italian population in Australia. These are big Greek population in South Australia. These are big Italian, and Greek population. So again, just getting these people to showcase their rugby league, what rugby league looks like through their lens, South Africa, so on. And another thing I'll touch on as well, you guys may not know, but Netherlands is actually ranked 9th in the world, and they're not even in the World Cup. So they ranked 9th in the world. Lebanon, I believe, ranked 14th. Cook Islands are 10th. So this may be genuinely the only rugby league, only World Cup in which a top 10 team, in which it doesn't feature a top 10, one top 10 team. So that's rugby league, international rugby league for you guys. But yeah, Netherlands are actually 9th in the world and they're not featured. Anyway, to go back to the pool, sorry for digressing there. The way that it's looking is there's going to be 3 pools. So I know Samoan point of view actually pointed this out because this is something I told Fanatics. We both agree it should have been 2 teams of 5, 2 pools. 2 pools of 5 teams. What they've done though is actually 3 teams, 3 pools, and in those pools it'll be 4 teams in one, 3 in another, and then another 3 in the other. That's literally how they're going to be doing their pools. So again, to repeat, that's Pool A, B, and C. Pool A will feature 4 teams. Pool B will feature 3 teams. Pool C will feature 3 teams. A bit of a tongue twister there. That is insane. That's not logical. So that means one team is probably going to have to win less games. I'm going to imagine it'll be Pool A because they're going to put New Zealand and Australia in that pool. So for a fact, for a fact that those 2 teams are going to make it through. They're going to qualify. It's going to happen. And then they've got Samoa and Tonga in Pool B and Pool C. They're going to separate those 2, right? The formatting itself is just it's all over the place. I don't know about you Fanatics, but I don't think we need to explain too much how it is. But what are your thoughts on that? So I've just given you literally how the stage is going to look. Are you confused? I hope. Are you confused?
Well, by my state of look right here, I am sort of confused. I won't lie. It is a bit confusing for people who are, gonna, even people that are new that want to follow the Rugby League World Cup. People want to jump on it. Have a look. It is quite confusing. I do agree. I thought it should be the other way around, the way the format is. But apparently, whether it's NRL involved or international rugby leagues thinking, I don't know who's thinking it is. I probably think it's NRL because NRL is involved in everything.
I'm going to jump in here. I don't think there's much thinking, Fanatics. I don't think there's much thinking.
No.
I don't think there's much thinking. So
yes.
R over here said that that's my understanding is Pool B and Pool C, their teams will play each other. I think but again, I think it's still not. It just doesn't make sense. It still doesn't. I mean, it makes sense in that case that obviously every team gets 3 games each. It makes sense there, but it doesn't make sense in the case of like just the way the pool is structured. As I said, Samoan point of view and myself and yourself. What could have been easier is this, honestly. 2 pools, 5 teams, right? You put England, Australia, and New Zealand in opposite pools, right? And then you literally sprinkle them down. And then the top 2 from each of those pools just go, yeah, that's right. There we go. There's Samoan point of view. That's right. So he echoes exactly what I'm saying. The top 2 from both of those pools go straight into prelim. Oh, sorry, not you know what I mean. Semi-final. Sorry, I'm talking about NRL, AFL prelim here. Sorry, go straight to the semis, and then they go to the grand final. That's it. That's how you do it. That would have been so much better. What are your thoughts there, Fanatics?
Yeah, I was just actually opening the comments and reading that up. I think that's the way they should go about it. Yeah, I can't. I agree with Samoan point of view there on his comment in regards to the way it should be structured more. Like I don't think there's been a clear, proper thinking by the International Rugby League or the NRL, whoever's in charge of that, on the way it's formatted. I don't think they had a clear idea what they're trying to do there. In my opinion, so I know we've had World Cups where it's featured quarterfinals before, semis and a final, but they've changed it completely.
Look. When it comes to a World Cup, if your fans are left having to sort of try and piece the puzzles together, you already know you've done a bad job. That's it. Like once your fans are having to piece puzzles, right? Pool B, Pool D, first place versus second. That's it. It's done. Like you're done. That's it. It's cooked. It's over. So that's my thinking. I mean, look, I'm sure it'll all sort of make sense eventually, but the point is, it's just a silly thing. But look, I guess we're probably not the only ones that are sort of left out of the loop here, fanatics. But what are your thoughts? I guess a question I can ask you: what are your thoughts? So we obviously have this World Cup coming in next year, but the following World Cup in 2030, 2030, there's actually been a few countries that have actually put their hands up to try and host the Rugby League World Cup. USA have been one. South Africa have actually been another.
Yep.
I've actually heard echoes of a country in the Middle East. I'm not too sure if it's either. I think it might be UAE. I think it's United Arab Emirates. You know, where they one of those, or New Zealand. New Zealand, obviously, I think they've tried to put their hand up again. What are your sort of thoughts on the next nation hosting World Cup?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the UAE one. If it is UAE, I don't think we should go there personally. I know they had the Football World Cup there, but it's all. Yeah, I don't want to get too into it, but in regards to the other places you mentioned, South Africa is one, which is interesting. I don't know. Yeah, that's tough, man, because I don't know a lot about rugby league in South Africa. I've only just look, in all due respect, I only just found out they had a team, and realised they were playing the Cook Islands in a World Cup qualifier. So, I don't really know too much to really comment in regards to rugby league there and what it'd be like there, because obviously rugby's so big there, and we're going to get. I won't go into that a bit because it's another thing. But New Zealand, you see, New Zealand's another one. Why not? How many times now we've been bidding and they've turned us down. So rugby league in New Zealand and have it in New Zealand again. Why not? I think it wouldn't be a bad one. Who else did you mention? You mentioned South Africa, possibly UAE, South Africa. Who else? New Zealand.
Yeah. So another country as well that
Is
put
there
their hand
another
up,
couple countries?
and that was the United States actually put their hands up.
USA.
United States,
USA is.
Good old USA. Yeah, they
Yeah,
want to host
USA.
a World Cup.
Yeah. USA is an interesting one because they're also hosting the FIFA World Cup football next year. I believe them and Mexico are hosting it, so they're hosting it with them and Mexico hosting the FIFA Football World Cup. So yeah, I mean, rugby league World Cup in USA. I don't think I'd mind it, to be honest. Some people may not like it, but I think USA wouldn't be a bad thing because we seem to always go to England. Yeah, we always go to Australia. Why not go to USA? Something completely different. Other than there. What do you think about it?
Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing it go to South Africa because it's something different. Again, we all know South Africa, the Rainbow Nation. They're a rugby union place, but having a bit of something different wouldn't be too bad, I think. Give me 2 seconds there. I've just got helicopters sort of hovering around, so I'll probably let you sort of go here, fanatics. Just have a bit of a yarn, mate. What's going on?
Yeah, okay. So just actually reading. I'll just go have a look at these comments actually in regards to ARW is asking a question in regards to a second New Zealand team. Should be the 20th New Zealand should be the 20th team. Make it a Pacific based. It would sell out all the time. We see the Tonga and Samoa crowds. Imagine it for a NRL team. What do you look? Like personally from my point of view, I felt like a second New Zealand team would be great in the NRL. Christchurch, Wellington. I think Christchurch more or less so would be a great place to have it, like in the new stadium there that they've been built, which is opening next year. But I honestly can't see a second New Zealand team coming in now with Papua New Guinea coming in and Perth coming in.
Look,
obviously ramming up will be, saying Adelaide should come in. He's strong on
absolutely,
Adelaide coming in.
mate.
So,
This whole
as
channel,
you
mate,
are
is all
with an
about names. Absolutely.
Adelaide-based channel.
Yeah, look, I
Yeah.
will say this. Look, if you guys haven't done so, go and check my video where I talk about expansion, and I sort of give you guys a rough idea as to why I think. Again, it's all opinion based, but why I think there won't be a second New Zealand team, and why I don't think there'll be a second New Zealand team of any sort from the NRL. I think one of the main reasons, and I think Samoan point of view actually touched on it in the comments there on the video. I think it has to do with financing again. Sales, for example, but not only that. At the same time as well, player pool, player availability. The Warriors want to be the only team in town, so to speak. And again, if you do have a second New Zealand team, guess what you guys have to do? You got to change the Warriors name from New Zealand to Auckland. I don't think they want to revert back to Auckland. There's just there's a whole lot of politics that I don't think people are. And again, we're not going to look. This is another subject for another time. So don't you guys get me and Fanatics stuck in here talking about this. So look, we'll save that for another time. We're going to wrap it up, but I will say before we sort of go off, look, there's a whole heap of politics around why I don't think the second team can be based in New Zealand. And I think the Warriors will do everything in their power. Believe me, they'll do everything in their power to destroy any transfer happening. Trust me, they're not going to work with the NRL to make it happen. This is just it is what it is, guys. It's facts. I don't think the Warriors want to share. They don't want to share. They want like the Melbourne Storm, right? Like the Melbourne Storm. They want to be the only team in town, the New Zealand Warriors, the Melbourne Storm. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but there was echoes of Geelong being named as a second NRL, as another team in Victoria. The Melbourne Storm absolutely slashed that one there. And I will answer this too, Fanatics. So, and I'll just before we go, and you can give me your final thoughts, and then we'll hop off. But it says here, Samoan point of view, NRL needs to expand to Hawaii, needs to think bigger. My only so I'm against this, namely because obviously you got PNG. PNG, I think, will sort of be the Pacific team, if you will, despite it being in PNG. I think that's probably a route in which they're going to utilize Pacific players, to be fair with you, going to PNG. Secondly, you've got the timeline as well. Hawaiian time, totally different. We're talking about, 2 p.m. kickoffs at 9 p.m. at night for us, 10 p.m., that type of stuff. Timeline is just a bit different there. Time zone adjusting. It's basically flying to Las Vegas almost virtually, every second week, if you will, for some teams and for the Hawaiian team. So I just don't think it'll work. But in saying that, though, before we go, Fanatics, apologies. What are your thoughts? Give me your final words, man, and then we'll head off. But again, guys, look, I will say this. I was actually planning on making this the last live of the year, but you guys have, screw it. There'll be another live. I'll talk to Fanatics. It'll be more based on probably a bit more NRL/international squads and all that stuff. But yeah, we'll talk about it after this, no doubt. But before we sort of go, this guy, oh gosh, look at him. Look, he's trying to keep us here. No, we're not going to fall for your bait, mate. We're going to hop off this, and we'll answer that next time. I promise you, bro. I got your question there. We'll definitely answer it for next potty. But yeah, before we head off, final thoughts, man.
Yeah. Okay. So just thank you, Rabbit Up, for having me on your channel, and thanks to some of the viewers that have just popped in and flowing through your questions and comments, which is great stuff. Always appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. I'm sure we will be doing a few more of these before the year wraps up. Thinking it's maybe not the last one. It might not be. But yeah, I do appreciate you having me on, and thanks to all the viewers for tuning in as well. But what a year of rugby league, international rugby league. It was a joy. Pacific Championships was an absolute joy to watch. Crowds in all three games were brilliant as well, and looking forward to the World Cup next year. And thanks for having me on.
No, you're absolutely more than welcome. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. And yes, there'll be another potty as well. A lot of international league will definitely dissect. But look, again, big ups to our Toa Samoa, the Kiwis, Mate Matonga. And thank you again, guys, for joining in. And you'll see us very soon. And I'm actually playing some touch tomorrow for the first time in a long time out in the South Aussie sun. So wish me luck because I'm going to need it. But take care, guys. We'll see you next stream and up the Adelaide Rams. See you guys later. Take it easy.